I'm Justin Davis, and this is Runcam RC.
Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. I'm Justin Davis. Today we're going to review the MJX Bugs 8. This is the Pro version, and I'm running it today on a 3S 1300 that comes along with it. And it's nice because it does come with this little micro XT30 connector on here, which is pretty much a universal connector for a lot of micro style batteries. And you can get an extra 3S 1300. I'll try to put some links down below for some 1000 milliamp ones as well. Those will run a little bit lighter, but what's cool about this review today is I have done this review before, so I'm pretty familiar with the Bugs 8 Pro. But today we're going to do something different. I've done some mods on here that I'm going to share with you in the studio after this flight. I did put my Firefly Cam on there, and this cam is super popular right now because it shoots 1080p and it weighs like 14 grams. So this is a really nice addition. You don't have to have a GoPro flying on the front of your Bugs 8 Pro because a GoPro is actually pretty heavy. It does shoot 4K, but 1080p is going to be good enough for me today, I think. So we also added a Runcam style clone in the front up here, and that's a cheaper version of a Runcam. And I also have a VTX tucked under here, and we put a hole right through the top of the canopy for that dipole antenna to stick out of. And we have it powered with a 2S 500 milliamp back here, but I'm going to show you more about that setup in the studio. It's pretty easy to do, very easy to set up. But let's go ahead now and let's get it up in the air and we'll fly it. We'll do a little bit of line of sight flying with it. After that, we'll do some FPV. So before we take off, I'm going to show you how to bind this to the transmitter, just in case you get yours from the factory and it's not bound up or the red button's not working. If that little lock button doesn't arm your motors and these lights are flashing in the back, that means it's probably not bound up. So I'm just going to show you how to do that real quick so people know how to do that. Going to plug in the quad first. Then you're going to push the red button right here on the very top left. That's that little lock button, and turn it on at the same time. And once I do that, once it's linked up, you'll see these two lights go off. And once they go out, you're pretty much bound up with the transmitter. You'll have a solid blue light right here. Now I can stand back and I can press that lock button again. That's going to unlock my motors. Just a short press, and then I'm going to use the throttle switch to bring me up off the ground. And now I'm in stabilized mode right now, so I have full stabilization. And if I pull all the way to the right or the left, it's not going to do a flip. Right now I'm not flying in acro mode, and I'm not going to switch into acro mode unless I'm on the ground first. So before you go into acro mode, don't switch into it while you're flying. It's a big deal with this quad, but it's pretty fast. And I've talked about this quad before. I feel like the sticks are a little bit loose. I feel like it has really high rates. You can also turn the rates down. It has a high and low method. So I'll bring it over here a little bit and I'll push that button. And now I'm even higher mode than before. You can see more angle of attack there. The low mode is still pretty fast, but you do have stabilize. You're not flying in a full acro mode. And keep in mind, you have to think about your turns because you can fly into a tree pretty quick. But it's really, really agile. Once you get used to the throttle on the left right here, I think that's the biggest thing with this quad. The yaw rate's really, really high. See the LEDs in the very front right there? That's pretty cool. And this quad is not really that slow, you guys. So FPVing it, once you do get goggles, this will be a lot of fun. I think the Bugs Pro series, the 8 Pro series, is definitely really a great trainer for a lot of people. Just because it's not a super expensive quad. It has stabilized. You don't have to hook it up to a computer, which I love. You can get into that later and learn beta flight. It's not important in just the very first few days. You can always have plenty of time to learn beta flight after having your first trainer quad. But this is a pretty good size quad too. It's around the 250 millimeter mark. And we are running 2204 motors on here, so that's good for you guys because they're more efficient. You're going to get a longer flight time with those 2204s. A lot of people in the race community fly 2205s and 2206, even 2207s. And the higher you get up in the numbers, the more battery you're going to burn up quicker. So let's come in for a landing. We'll turn on that Firefly Cam. I'm going to hit my little red lock button there and it disarms it. So we're gonna turn on our FPV camera in the front here with this little 2S 500 milliamp battery, and let's get our Firefly recording, and I'll show you how awesome that is out in the field doing some FPV with this little guy. Here we go. All right, guys, welcome back into the studio. Let's have some fun now, and let's talk about the Bugs 8 Pro. Let's also show you some great mods that you can do with this one. If you want to spend $100 on this quad, it comes without a camera, and I'm going to show you how to put the best quality camera on there for the cheapest amount of money, as well as adding a $26 Firefly little micro action cam. This thing is like a mini GoPro that records 1080p. It also comes with this cool little mount on the side right here, so you can add this on just about any little brushless micro quad or even 5-inch FPV racer with a little bit of VHB. You can also put some zip ties under here. It has holes, 2 holes in the front and back for zip ties. So very popular camera right now, and these might even be sold out at this point. But first, let's go ahead and talk about the Runcam clone that I put on here, and I'll pop the top on this guy and I'll show you how I hook that up. But first things first, before I pop this top, I have to tell you, the top of this MJX Bugs 8 Pro has a lot of possibilities for you guys because it's really flat across the top. So if you wanted to put some type of GoPro mount back a little bit from the props, a little further back in the sort of the center of the CG, you can do that with a little bit of tilt. But this Firefly is really great because it's only 14 grams, and I love that about this. Now what I did to fix up this mod was also just behind the Firefly right there, there is a hole right in the center of this canopy, and I just took my soldering iron and just popped a hole right in there, big enough for this JST connector to come out of, and that antenna right there is a dipole antenna coming from the VTX tucked under here. There's enough room underneath here to put the VTX and hide that away from harm of the propellers. But you're going to have your little 2S 500 milliamp battery riding back here with a little bit of Velcro, and it stays put while you're flying, which is also pretty nice. So you can see the JST connector there, and you just simply plug it in, and then you have FPV on this quad. But let me go ahead and pull the top off for you guys so you can see what's underneath here and how I have all this set up. I'm just going to move it to the side there. And so what I did was, and I'll zoom in for you real quick, I took a piece of sort of horror style foam, and this little foam keeps the camera from tilting back any further. But I'll just go ahead and pull this piece of foam out of there for you, and I'll pop this camera out. Now what I did was I used this little Tpu Mount right here. You can get these on thingiverse.com and print them out, or you can just use any old regular sort of a metal version of this as well. And there's plenty of room down inside the bay of this for any Runcam micro style camera. So that's plenty of room in there, even for a mount. Put a little piece of VHB down there in the bottom and just stick it down. And once it's down, you can take a little piece of foam and move the camera far forward enough so you don't have any of the frame in the way, and then just stick your foam in behind it, and that's going to keep it in place once you have that VHB down. So you can also adjust your camera tilt before you put it in there. I usually have about 30 to 35 degrees camera tilt, but the coolest thing about this is that I also have this up to 600 milliwatt VTX back here just behind it right here, and there's plenty of room for it to sit just underneath these wires. This also has a little piece of VHB on the bottom of it right here, and I have this dipole antenna coming up, and I'll try to put a link to one of these that'll work for you. It's super easy to wire up, so all you have to do is plug it into the back of your camera, and the other two wires coming off the very top right here just go to that JST connector. So your two power cables, and usually a lot of the VTXs that we have nowadays can run off of a 2S battery, so that's not a big deal. But I have a big enough hole here that the dipole can go up through, and it makes a pretty nice setup for this. I had no problem with signal loss or any of that, and I can run that right up next to the power plug, and you can pop this top right back on just like that. So now one other tip, if you're new to this, if you're just getting into this and you're getting this quadcopter specifically to do these mods with, what you really want to do and be careful about is this top plate right here can pop off during flight. So I did have mine pop off, and I would highly suggest just taking a small long zip tie, and you can actually run it down underneath the body, underneath the arm, and back over here, and that will hold this body down. Same thing for the very back part right here. Maybe stick an additional one back here, and you'll still be able to get your battery in and out as long as it's on the arms and not on the top of the battery. So just run your zip tie underneath the frame of the, just pull this battery out to show you. So it's going across here like this, and in the front as well. So that'll hold that top on there, and you won't have any failures with your mods. And let me just pull this Firefly camera out here so you can see it, and I'll show you how this works. And this is really simple to operate. It has two buttons on here. You can see this power button right here, and then the modes button. The modes button switches between 1080p and 720p video. So if you press it once, you're going to be in 720p, and press it again, you're going to go back to 1080p. And I usually leave it in 1080. It shoots the highest resolution possible. And then pressing this, that will actually power it up. If you press it and hold for a second, you'll see that little blue light up. And if I press it again, it'll start recording the video. But right now I don't have a micro SD card in there. If it was recording video, this will flash blue right here. You'll see that out in the field. I usually do hold my hand over it so the sun's not directly on it, and I can see that it's flashing, and I'm good to go. Over on this side is where your micro SD card goes, and you can use like a class 10. You can also use class 4, even as low as a class 4. Those are pretty cheap, and it goes all the way up to, I believe, 32 gigabytes, accepts a micro SD card in there. So, and you also have the little charging port that comes along with it. And this plugs in, it's like a little micro mini USB, and you'll see that little red light up there. And when it's all ready, this is going to go out. And this doesn't have a lot of fisheye in this camera, which I really like. It has a little 10mm lens in the front, and it has a protective cover over the front there. So if you do hit it from the front, you're not directly going to damage the lens that's just behind this piece of plastic. So you have a little bit of protection for your camera right just behind that glass, which is kind of nice. And the other nice thing about this is it does record audio. So guys that want to record audio or motor noise, you can do that with this camera as well. And it also has a little tether option there if you wanted to tether this off to your quad so that you absolutely didn't lose it somehow, or if it fell out of the mount somehow, that the mount would stay on your quad. You also have the option to do that right there, or if you're hiking with it, you could tether it to your wrist, which is kind of neat. But a lot of people are buying these right now, and they're pretty popular with a lot of guys. I've had tons and tons of emails and comments about the Firefly. It seems like this is fast becoming probably the favorite little mini cam for mini quads out there. So and I can stand behind this one myself. If I lost this, I would probably be pretty upset, because I do like this one a lot. But it's easy to put in this little slot right here, and the coolest thing about the mount that comes with it, I have heard some reports of people breaking this. You can also get the TPU version of it, but look on the side right here. If you look from the side, it protects your SD card from popping out. So that's a really nice feature of this mount. A lot of sport cams, sometimes when you crash, the micro SD card pops out and it's gone forever. So it's kind of hard to find that out in the field once you crash. But overall, I like the brand that they've released with the Bugs 8 Pro, and I think that the Bugs 8 Pro series quads are like just ridiculously easy to fly. And I think that's the biggest benefit of it, is that it's a no stress FPV experience. The biggest thing is that I go out, I put it down, I showed you guys how to bind up the transmitter. Once you do that, you press that lock button, it arms the motors, and if you're in stabilized, you can't push the stick past like 30 degrees, and it's not going to let you flip and crash. The only thing you have to worry about when you're first flying this quad is how sensitive the sticks are. So the throttle stick is a little bit sensitive, a little bit touchy, and that's also on your yaw axis as well. So your left-right turning axis is pretty fast. So once you get used to how the sticks move and you just press them a hair at a time, it actually flies really, really good. So that's something you're going to have to get used to with this quad. And I showed you guys the battery out of the field. That's that MJX RC 3S 1300 milliamp battery. And normally race quads do run a 4S 1300, but starting out on 3S is usually what I recommend for new guys, because it doesn't have an overpowered feeling. When I first started, I started on 3S and I graduated up to 4S. And once I could learn how to handle the quad's power, 4S was a lot of fun, but starting out on 3S is really where a lot of people should be. And even though this is a 3S battery, you're going to get an upwards of 7 minutes flight time with this particular battery, because I flew the line of sight flight test for around 4 minutes, and then the next flight I took was around 6 minutes. So I mean, I'm even getting close to 8 to 9 to 10 minutes with this battery. Quite a long time, and mainly because of the secret sauce of this particular quad is the 2204 motors. It doesn't use really big aggressive race motors on here. It uses 2204s, and it's a modest motor, but like I said before, it doesn't take a lot of power out of your battery, which is great. So you have a really long flight time with 2204. So it's kind of the perfect choice for a trainer quad. And if you look at the bottom of this whole frame is plastic. And when I first touched one of these for the first time, I was horrified that this was plastic. And I thought that this was going to break out in the field. I'd had other quads that were similar to this, sort of like a beginner quadcopter that was all plastic. And normally you want everything to be all carbon fiber, but I've broken carbon fiber as well. So I was pretty afraid of this frame when I first tried it out. But after several good hard crashes and no damage, it just bounced on the ground, I trusted this frame a little more, and I've never ever broken an arm. I have flown other brands recently that had sort of a beginner style plastic frame and completely broken arms off the middle of the frame. So I can say that this one is way more durable than some of the competitor frames out there. And getting your props on and off is super easy. You're just going to use your thumbs and thumb and forefinger there, and you're just going to pull it right off just like that. And it does have that flat spot, and there's also a little bit of a rubber washer right here, and that's going to help keep this thumb screw in place. So this thumb nut's going to stay in place a little bit better like this. And once you crank this down, you're going to need to just give it an extra turn after you think it's tight. After you think you've got it down, go ahead and give it another half turn or so, and that will really lock that prop down to your motor. So I think for people that are just getting into FPV and you want to fly a race drone, this is a no-brainer. This is a really easy way to get into it without having to hook it up to your computer and do a lot of beta flight stuff or play around with BL Heli trying to sync your ESCs or doing ESC calibration. It does have a 4-in-1 ESC in there, so all the parts are available and you can get replacement parts for it, which is also a big plus about MJX stuff. They're very popular and a lot of people fly it, so parts are out there and they're not hard to find. So if you want to do this mod yourself, I'll list all the links below, including the camera, the Firefly camera, a 2S battery, and this prop reamer tool. I think this is going to be great. If you're an owner of a Bugs 8 Pro, I'd probably pick up one of these anyway because it'll let you use non-proprietary style props. You can use any of the racecraft props or any 50/40 5-inch props on here out there on the market, which is super awesome. And also, guys, if you want to pick up one of these little mini landing pads, I use this all the time for my 5-inch racers, and I love this because it's way smaller than the larger one, like a lot of the Phantom style guys use. Just a lot smaller and more portable. But thanks again for hanging out with me and flying again today, and I appreciate you watching the channel and subscribing. Tomorrow is another video and another day. Thanks again. I'm Justin Davis. I'll see you on the next one. Take care, guys.